how do you identify as a writer? This video is part of our writing routine series that I started with another video a couple videos ago. But it's how you identify yourself as a writer, an author. How do you see yourself? Because how you see yourself impacts your writing routine and your writing goals. Welcome back, I'm Bardot. And here you will find writing tips and author tricks and just ways to live your best writing life. Because face it, it can be aggravating and frustrating, and especially if you work and have a full-time job, or you've got like full-time caretaking going on, and you're just like, I just want to write and I just want to publish books, and that's really hard to do. So these are all about living your best writing life. Now back to how you identify as a writer. This whole series really came about, I'm going to give you a little background, from a book that I read by James Clear called Atomic Habits. And it is a fabulous book, and it really got my wheels spinning. And the book is about, creating good habits and kind of getting rid of the bad habits with ways, like real ways that you can do it. And not being it about you and that you have no self-control, but about making the new habits that you want or getting rid of the old habits easier. I highly suggest reading it. But after I read the book, and as I was reading the book, I'm just thinking so much of this relates to my writing life that I'm just going to, look at a few chapters and relate it to you, how we can look at things in a new way. So one of those chapters was called How Do You Identify Yourself, or Identification. I don't remember the name of the chapter. I think it was the second or third chapter. If you've watched my channel before, I usually will mention I've been writing 10 or 11 years now, and this book helped me with that. So whether you're a brand new writer and want to create good habits or a good way at looking things, or you're a veteran writer and you've been writing a long time, I think this will help you create new habits. So I realized 10 years ago or 11 years ago when I first started writing, when people ask me, people I had never met before, you meet them at parties, whatever, and they say, oh, what do you do? Or, usually it's like, what do you do? I would tell them I am a teacher and I also write. That's pretty much what I said. I go, oh, I'm a high school teacher and I also write. And they would then ask me about, what grade do I teach? And they never asked me about what I was writing. And that was my fault, because I made that like a sidecar, like an add-on that didn't really matter. Now when people ask me, what do you do? I say, I'm an author and a teacher. And I feel confident saying that. So we're going to kind of look into that and kind of what changed that maybe, or how that actually changed for me over the course of my 10 years of writing. Before we go on, how do you identify yourself as a writer or an author? Do you say writer? Do you say author? Do you say aspiring author? We're going to get to that as well. Now, if you don't have a book, if you are not published, whether it's a book or an article or a short story, if you don't have something published, then you would be a writer. An author actually would have something published. So I always like to be correct in how I describe myself. So I think, if you are not published at this time, then identify yourself as a writer. But don't say you're an aspiring writer, because that just means that you are striving to write. And if you are writing, even if you're writing a paragraph a day, or you're writing multiple times a week, even if it's short, then you are still a writer. You're not aspiring to write. That's saying like, I want to write sometime. Okay, so don't put aspiring. don't use that adjective. In fact, if it's on your social media platform anywhere in the bio, get rid of it. It's a little, I think it's a little sad. It's like, hey, I'm a wannabe writer, which really doesn't mean anything. So if you're a writer, get rid of aspiring, okay? And as for aspiring author, I would just say writer. Aspiring author just sounds like you hope to finish. Once again, it's words have meanings, and and we're going to talk about this in a minute, how those words kind of ingrain in your brain and how they impact you and your thinking about yourself. Now, sometimes I will say I'm a writer, and sometimes I will say I'm an author. It really depends where I am, okay, and what place I'm at. If I'm at a Zoom meeting with a lot of other authors, I say I'm an author. Do I actually even say I'm a writer anymore? You know, it really kind of just, I'm trying to think if there's a time when I actually say I'm a writer and not an author. I can't think of any. Maybe that's changed over the last few years. Now I just say author. Yeah. Now, a lot of authors will just say that they are writers, and that's fine. That's totally up to you. But you're probably thinking, okay, Autumn, what does this have to do with writing routines and writing habits? Like, what does what you call yourself, how you identify yourself, have anything to do with that? So I'm going to give you some examples, okay? What if if somebody says, hey, what do? You're going to say, oh, I write some stuff, or I write for a hobby. Writing is my hobby. I've written a few things. Sounds a little bit like you don't have a plan, like you don't have a goal, like you don't have some ambition, which is fine. If you're a dabbler, then that is fine. But if you have goals and ambition, then by saying that, you're telling yourself, which is always more important than what you're telling other people here, like how you see yourself. If you're telling yourself and you're hearing yourself say, I just write some stuff, or it's just a hobby, you internalize that. And so then writing doesn't become the thing that you feel like you must do, the thing that you want to incorporate into your life as a routine, the thing that you want to be. I tell people now that I am a writer of historical fiction and urban fantasy. Like, that's it, just bam. And that's also what's on a lot of my bios as well. But when you say I just write some stuff, or it's a bit of a hobby, what you've done is just say that you're not serious, that you don't have any of those specific goals. And you hear that enough, whether you say that to yourself or you're saying that to other people, and like you internalize it. So let's say your goal is to write a series, or to write in a specific genre, or to write a bunch of books in a specific genre. You can say something like, I am writing a historical fiction series. Doesn't matter. You can be on the first chapter of the first book, but the goal is there. The urban fantasy series goal is there. And I don't care really what those other people hear. It's what my brain hears, what I internalize. So if I am a writer of an urban fantasy series, then guess what? I'm going to take the steps to get that urban fantasy series complete, as opposed to just saying, yeah, I think I want to write an urban fantasy, or I have plans to do an urban fantasy. Yeah, you see, it sounds a little bit more wishy-washy, and it doesn't compel me. I don't internalize it as, hey, if I'm a writer of an urban fantasy series, then I need to get cracking and I need to build that into my routine. Positive self-talk, positive self-identification, I think is way more important than we give it credit. I really do. I realized that when I was wishy-washy with things and what I was doing, people didn't ask as many questions. But when I was changed that, remember, words matter, words are important, words convey emotion and power. That conveyed itself both to me, internalized it, and to others as well. I once had a student come up and tell me that they were a writer, and I was so excited, right? I'm like, oh, that's amazing. I said, what have you written? Because that would be my natural question, right? What have you written? And the student looked at me and they said, nothing. And I'm thinking, what do you mean nothing? Because I'm thinking maybe they're thinking about being published or something like that. And they said, I'm like, what do you mean nothing? They go, well, I want to write a novel and it's all in my head. I just haven't written it yet. I'm not a Pollyanna teacher. I'm a realist. And I told them, well, you know, that's great. I said, but writers actually write. They don't just think about it. And the student kind of looked at me and wasn't real happy about that. And they said, but I'm a writer in my soul. Okay, I'm thinking, I get that. And I said, yeah. I said, you know, did you know I'm a scuba diver? And they said, no. I go, well, I haven't actually scuba dived, like I'm not certified, but I can snorkel. But I love, you know, going to the aquariums, and I love anything deep sea and looking at the fish. It really just fills me with a sense of peace. But I haven't actually, like, you know, learned to scuba dive. And the student kind of looked at me and, you know, his brows kind of creased, and then the light bulb went on. And he said, oh, okay, I get it. So if I'm a writer, I actually have to write. I said, yeah, it's probably a good idea. He says, I get it. I want to write. I have all these thoughts in my head, but I don't want to write it down. So what does that make me? And I said, you know, I don't know. But having a good idea is a lot different than actually doing the hard work of writing, revising, editing, learning the novel craft, learning about plots and plotting and character. I said all of that is a lot different than actually having some great ideas in your head for a book. And he told me, that sounds like a lot of work. And I said, yeah, it is. It's a lot of work. Which is what writers do. So the student like scratched their head and they were thinking, and they finally said, and I was impressed with their honesty. They said, you know what? I realized I don't really want to be a writer because that's too much work. I just want to think of cool things in my head. And I said, yes. Don't we all? Writers write. They see themselves as writers. They identify themselves as writers, not aspiring writers, not dabbling writers, as writers, which means they have a plan to make writing part of their daily activities or bi-weekly or tri-weekly tasks or routines. Writers write. I made a list of things that I call myself, okay? I'm a teacher. I teach 5 days a week. I'm a swimmer. I swim during the season about 5 to 7 times a week. So I'm swimming most every day. I'm also a reader because I read something every day. I pick up a book, something. I'm reading something. I'm a rower and I have a row machine and I have started rowing. So now I call myself a rower, okay, because I row about 4 times a week. I'm a writer because I write something almost every day. If it's not content for the video, then it is I'm working on my novel right now. And my hope is, no, I'm not going to say hope. I will get that rough draft done before I have to get back to school in August. So I'm not going to hope, I will. Rough draft done before I go back to school. I'm a mom because I do a lot of momming. And mom is a verb, or it should be. Did you notice anything there? They all involve some kind of action towards a goal. When I first started this YouTube channel about a year and a half ago, I think, I did not call myself a YouTuber. I said I put up some YouTubes, and I was very wishy-washy with it. I'd say I'm a writer, and then I also have a YouTube channel, and that just didn't seem real strong, or I didn't identify as a YouTuber. But now, a year and a half later, I tell people I am an author and a YouTuber. Not I have a YouTube channel, because anybody with a Google account has a YouTube channel. I'm a writer and a YouTuber. So I yet have changed how I identify myself yet again. Oh, really quick. My master's class, The Power of Archetype and Writing a More Masterful Sentence, is changing platforms. So I've changed the platform that it's going to be on. It's not on anything right now. I'm working through some details, and once that is all loaded onto the site that I would like it loaded on, then I will let you know. If you're not on Club Autumn, make sure to look at Club Autumn or on my newsletter. All the links for that are below, and as soon as that goes up and is live and ready to be, is ready for you, then I'll let you know. How do you identify? Do you see yourself as a writer, an author? How are you telling people, or how are you explaining what you do to people? Think about that next time it comes out of your mouth. Think about, are you hemming and hawing? Are you forceful? Because if you're more, and I don't want to say forceful because that doesn't sound right. If you are more specific about what you are and what your goal is, then I think that will help you internalize it and help you to create the routines that you want to create, so that you can become, to get more writing in during the day, to get things, to make sure you live out your goal. Because really, a goal is great. All those little things, all those routines that you must do that actually create that goal, that get you to that goal. And a lot of that is how you see yourself and internalize who you are, not only to other people, but more importantly, to yourself. Let me know if you've had problems with this, if you feel weird about it, or if you have no problem telling everybody what you do or how you do it, or do you find yourself kind of hemming and hawing a little bit. I think this is probably something newer writers, beginning writers struggle with, because they don't know if they're going to actually write that book at the end, right? They just don't know if they're going to do it. But if you don't know, that tells me you're not building in the routines to actually do it. So if you yourself are unsure if you're going to do it, you are not building the proper framework, you're not laying the proper groundwork to actually complete that thing that you want to do, that novel that you want to write, or that series of novels. So think about how you see yourself and change it to reflect your goal. Okay, I think that would work really great. Or your steps toward the goal. So be the writer, not the aspiring writer. I think that will help you see yourself in a better way, a more positive way. I'll see you next week. But until then, remember to dream, create, which I think is the hard part, and embrace, which is what we talked about right today. Embracing who you are, embracing how you identify yourself in your goal, your plan, your steps to write a novel, to write 20 novels, to write 30 novels, whatever your goal is. Bye-bye.